Hi, Dr. Will here again. Welcome to another one of our video blog newsletters. And we are doing a part two of our last blog, which was the compulsory influenza vaccine, whether we think that's whether it should be compulsory or not. So because I got quite a big response to that last blog, I've decided to do, and I was asked if I could do more information. So this is part two of that subject. And before we start, again, this is my medical disclaimer that I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not against vaccination. I'm a pro-safe vaccination advocate. I believe in pro-choice though, and I believe in informed consent as well. But what I am anti is I'm anti-ridicule, I'm anti-coercion, I'm anti-greed, I'm anti-dishonesty, I'm anti-corruption. And wherever it is, on whichever side of the coin it is. And it's not always easy to actually separate truth from error or truth from untruth. So what I'm presenting to you today is what I believe hopefully will be helpful to you so you can be more informed and make your own choices. So it is information for pro-choice. So what I'm going to do with today's blog is I'm going to give you some background on others, what other people, public opinion, lawyers, celebrities, etc., what their position is. And again, although I mentioned this last time, and I probably mentioned it before, there is one radio commentator who, if you disagree with his opinion, then you're an imbecile. And again, to me, that doesn't help the discussion at all, just emotionalizes it. I don't think we make any progress in taking that position. So hopefully you'll see that there is differences of opinion, different views, and that's why we have to, I believe, be educated so we can make our choices. I'm going to start with an interesting one, and that is Pete Evans, the celebrity chef. And again, according to this radio commentator, Pete Evans is an imbecile because of his position. Now, I've been on Pete Evans I've been on his website, and as you know, he had a show on TV, cooking, etc. So, which wasn't very popular, and it was discontinued. Pete has a website selling different things, and admittedly, he does have some very strong views on things. In fact, he was fined $25,000 just recently by the TGA for mentioning that a machine that he was promoting actually had a setting in there for treatment for COVID virus, or the COVID-19 virus, and he was fined for making that statement. Now, I think I disagree with that, whether the machine works or not. Again, I think that's overreach. It's going too far, but that's just my own opinion. You can make your own conclusions. Of course, he has been vilified for some of his views and some of his opinions. Now, the main reason for mentioning Pete Evans is I want you to think about it for a moment. What do you think he has to gain from taking these positions or views that are not mainstream? To me, he has more to lose than he has to gain. His reputation, his business, etc. So he must obviously believe very strongly in those views, and strongly enough to express them even at his own expense, in a way, because the criticism and the ridicule that he'll get because of that. But he feels strongly enough about it to want to share his views. Now, what's wrong with that? Whether you disagree with that or not, he should be allowed to have free speech, so to speak. So whether you agree with him or don't disagree with him, that he should be allowed to express his opinion without all of the attacks and the ridicule that come with it. By all means, disagree with his opinion, but to attack the person, I think that doesn't help. I don't think that's right. Another one too is Donald Trump, and I know some of you are going to go, oh, because Donald Trump is a very polarizing person. You're either okay with him or you're not okay with him, and some people have already changed because they were against him and now they're for him because they've seen the results that he gets. Now, before he was president, he had some views that he believed that vaccination could contribute to autism. And they were quite worried, the authorities were quite worried when he became president that he would make changes to the current system or laws concerning vaccination. And he even met with Robert F. Kennedy, who's a lawyer, who promotes safe vaccines and exposes unsafe vaccines. And he is the nephew JFK, the American president. And he, again, I guess, and this commentator also was derogatory towards Robert F. Kennedy. And again, why would he, as a lawyer, take on this cause? Not a popular one, but he's been doing this for quite some time. He's got lots of evidence to back being a lawyer, to back up his claims of unsafe vaccination. He's also campaigned against unclean water and other things, and actually taken companies to court that have actually polluted the water. Now, as far as public opinion is concerned, the Hill, that's a newspaper in Washington, America, which is more conservative, and there's many newspapers over there or news agencies, and a lot of them have a lean or a bent towards one side of politics. It's very politicized. So the Hill is more conservative, and they did a survey, or a poll, asking the question: should the government make it mandatory for children to have vaccinations if they are shown to have a healthy, strong immune system? So I'll repeat that again. Should the government make it mandatory that children be vaccinated if they are shown to have a healthy, strong immune system? And out of conservatives, people that were considered conservative in their views, the vote was 54% yes, they should make it mandatory, and 46% said no. So you can see that's not, it's not certainly all one way. So it's interesting to know that 40% of those that were polled of conservative views actually believe they shouldn't be mandatory. Now, the Liberals, which in America Liberal is more like our Labour in Australia, it's more left. The Liberals voted, it was 70% yes, 30% no, and the Moderates, which are kind of in between, they voted 61% yes and 39% no. So you can see that it's still not an overwhelming majority. And I'm being told that there are even other polls that have been done that show that there are now more people saying it shouldn't be mandatory. And I wanted to get those references for you before I did this, but they weren't forthcoming, so I had to proceed without them. So when I get them, I'll certainly make them available to you so you can see that for yourself. So that just shows the public opinion. Now, some other things, just moving on, there's actually a petition, on the government website, which is opposing the government's directive to enforce, now that's the word used in the literature, to enforce the influenza vaccine of those associated with aged care. What that means is aged care workers, aged care people that were visiting aged care people, friends and loved ones, those that were actually doing trade work on aged care centres. They all had to have an influenza vaccine before they could be allowed into the premises. And there is a petition there to actually oppose that, and I've given you the reference for that. So it shows you that there are people out there, there's a public opinion against this in this coercion. Now, you could argue backwards and forwards that, well, it's in the interests of the aged care people in there to protect them, to have other people vaccinated. And, I think that's a fair argument. But I'm not going to take one side or the other or try to persuade you either way. The reason for letting you know this is that there is differences of opinion on all of this. Now, the next one is, this is another petition that to stop, again, very similar, to stop coercion of Australians to be medicated with the influenza virus. Now, of course, it's any person in any situation, I'm assuming. But again, I've given you the reference for that. Now, this is actually a lawyer that's there's a lawyer that's actually instigating a class action, and her name is Serene Tafaha. Serene Tafaha. She's a lawyer in Melbourne, and she's instigating a class action for those people that have to have a mandatory influenza vaccine, to take a class action against the government for that. So why would this lawyer do that? For money? I don't know. But it's certainly not a popular topic. But this lawyer seems to me to be a very tough lawyer, because she even takes on the ATO, the Australian Tax Office, for her clients. So she sounds like a very strong-willed person. But again, is she an imbecile? We're talking about lawyers, we're talking about the President of the United States, we're talking about a fair percentage of the population. Are they all imbeciles? Because they have a different point of view. Okay, now, question is, are there risks involved with the influenza virus? And you're being told that that's perfectly safe. Well, I've included a link which shows that in 2010, if my memory serves me correctly, there was a child that was severely brain damaged after being given the influenza virus. And the family sued and sued the government, and they won. The judge awarded the damages to the parents of this brain damaged child. And it was also shown that other children were hospitalized under 5 due to the bad reactions from this influenza vaccine, I beg your pardon. So again, you can look at that on the link. What actually happened eventually is that particular vaccine was banned for children under 5. So that vaccine wasn't safe, at least not for children under 5. So there's a reference for you. There's an interesting one. If you have the influenza virus, are you more or less likely to get the coronavirus? What's the general consensus? What's the general advice? They say you're much less likely to get the coronavirus if you have the influenza vaccine. Well, one study, and I don't know that there's any evidence or studies to support the former claim that you're less likely, but that would be interesting to see if there are. But there is one study called the Pentagon study that found you are 36% more likely to get the coronavirus if you've had flu shot. Interesting. So again, I've given you that reference. So in closing, is there any alternative to help you? Any alternative to the influenza vaccine? Any alternative to try and protect yourself in other ways? Well, I've always maintained all the time that your best protection is your health and your immune system. And we went through that on previous blogs, so I'm not going to go through that again. You can go back to those blogs and you can get that information. But the Orthomolecular Association has actually given a protocol, and that's in the blog that I did on the COVID virus, which shows vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin D, etc. Those things that you can take to build up your immune system to help make you less susceptible. And I include my own personal program for the immune system too, such as a green powder, a trace mineral product, and of course vitamin C. So you can go back and you can look at those. What I would like to add is that in my practice we use homeopathic remedies, and I've mentioned before and provided what I feel is evidence to show that there is a role, or there is a benefit for using homeopathic remedies for infectious diseases, and I've showed that how different countries have proven that: India, Brazil, Cuba, and I have an article on that which I did some time ago, and it's also mentioned in my last blog, so you can go back to that. So we have a remedy, a homeopathic remedy that we have available should people want to use it to help to make them less likely to get the flu. Has it been double-blind, placebo studied? Not that I'm aware of. What's the evidence to prove that it works? That particular one, I don't have any, but the fact that in my experience, in my positions, that homeopathic remedies do help, and they can play a role, and so we offer that for those that want to do whatever they can to help prevent the flu. Now, I'm not saying you should do this instead of a flu vaccination. That's entirely up to you, whether you want to do one or the other or both. That's really your choice. But again, I reiterate, at the risk of sounding boring, this is all about informed consent. So I'm seeking to inform you. It's about pro-choice, so you can exercise your inalienable right to make these choices for yourself and your family. So I hope that's been helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you on our next blog. And also, hopefully, we can change the subject and move off this controversy. It's not an easy topic to discuss from my point of view, because I know can be very strong opinions and emotions on either side, and so I try to steer somewhere in the middle, even though you can see which way I'm leaning. But I can only reiterate that I don't have a strong leaning one way or the other. I can see both sides. That's why I try and give you the side you're not getting, so you can make that choice. So this is Dr. Bill signing off, and we'll see you on our next blog. Thank you for being with us.